Hi everyone, this is Anna. Thank you so much for dropping by. In this video, I'll show you how to create stunning multi-layered scenes for your cards. These may look a little complicated to make, but it really isn't once you know the techniques involved. I'll be using the add-ons from Hero Arts February 2022 release for my cards, but you most probably have similar items in your stash that you could build these multi-layered scenes with. I also have another card I'll show you towards the end of the video using something I found in a hardware store not commonly used in paper crafting. Now let's get started. Let's start by creating the backgrounds for the card. I have here a panel of watercolor paper and two pieces of heavyweight regular white cardstock. I will do a technique called ink smushing, and I'll be using Hero Arts Reactive inks. I smushed some blue Hawaii ink onto a silicone media mat, then added some Thistle Reactive ink in between. I took a spray bottle and sprayed the inks generously with water. Then I took a watercolor panel and pounced it onto the watered down inks. I kept turning the paper and using my hand to press down to pick up more and more of the ink. I set it aside and did the same with the regular white cardstock panels. I could have used watercolor paper for this, but I also wanted to show you could use a good heavyweight cardstock for this technique. The difference being is that with watercolor paper, more of the inks absorb into the paper, while regular cardstock, the inks stay more at the surface of the paper. After the first layer dried, I smushed in a second layer. This will add more depth to the background. I also splattered some leftover paint to create additional interest. This is what the panels look like when dried. To create the frames for my scene, I took the cloud window die and cut two regular cardstock panels using these dies. There are two window frames that I had die cut. This one had more purple and this one more blue. So I will take this one and ink blend using the Grape Slush ink. I took a blending brush and started ink blending the inner parts of the frame. I concentrated the blending only on the edges. This will emphasize the textures of the clouds. Since this is the middle layer, I didn't really need to ink blend the outer edges as it won't be seen by the time I assemble the card. I took the other die-cut panel and used blue Hawaii Reactive ink, but this time I blended only the outer edges. I started blending a little off the edge of the paper, slowly working inwards. This one will be the topmost panel of the card, so I made sure to ink blend around as evenly as possible. Here are the two ink blended frames and the watercolored background. I will use the inner die cuts for the elements of my card. For the two small die cut balloons, I used the Looking Glass hot air balloon dies that you see there at the top left hand side of the screen. I used the same color of reactive inks, first Grape Slush, then blue Hawaii to ink blend. I will then do some selective die cutting for these elements. After die cutting the balloons using the dies, I used my scissors to trim the unwanted die cut areas, leaving this part still attached. The sentiment for the card, a hot air balloon with the words "Follow Your Dreams," is from the Use Sparkles stamp set. I will also use the same inks to ink blend. Off screen, I will heat emboss it using white embossing powder and then die cut using the coordinating frame cuts. Taking the two frames and layering them one on top of another, I noticed that the right side of the bottom frame was hidden behind the top layer. So I'll cut it in the middle with my scissors and adhere them closer together. Before adhering the two sides closer together, I will check to see if it lines up and is seen properly on the right side. I added some liquid glue to the edges of one side and adhered them closer together. I just made sure that the bottom frame edges were not visible through the top window frame. I will now add acetate to each of the layers, starting with the bottom layer. I added a generous amount of liquid glue, taking care not to get too close to the edges as the glue might seep through and be seen. I placed a piece of clear acetate on top and held it down with my hands for a few seconds to give it time to set. Then I did the same for the topmost window layer. The reason I'm placing acetate is that the elements would need something stable to adhere to. I will also add embellishments later on which will give the scene that extra sparkle. After the glue dries, I will trim off the extra acetate hanging off the sides. Off screen, I added foam tape to the two window panels. Here I am planning the layout of my card. I do this to make sure that all the elements are visible and balanced throughout the scene. The smallest balloon will be at the very back of the card. This will give it the illusion of it being the farthest away. Then the other die-cut hot air balloon will be adhered to the second or middle layer of the scene. Then the sentiment balloon at the top left-hand side. Once I was happy with the layout, I carefully removed each layer and set them aside. Then I started gluing all the elements, starting with the smallest balloon. Before I adhere the second layer, I will add some little star-shaped embellishments here and there. I added little dots of liquid glue, mostly in the middle area of the background. Then, with the picker tool, I added the embellishments. I removed the backing of the foam tape on the window frame. I also added a thin strip of foam tape to one side, removed the backing on that too, then placed the middle layer of my scene carefully on top. I will also add a piece of foam tape on this side. I adhered the other die-cut balloon on top of the frame at the bottom right, then proceeded to add more of the little stars. Gluing these embellishments on the acetate gives it an illusion of them floating in the sky. I removed the backing of the foam tapes, then hovered the topmost frame panel, aligned it carefully on the right side before placing it down. Then I adhered the sentiment balloon on the top left. Here's another look at the card. I finished it off by adding more of this little star embellishments all over the frame. As mentioned earlier in my video, here's another card I made using the same techniques, but instead of ink smooshing, I created galaxy backgrounds using Nuvo shimmer powders. I will link a technique video at the top and at the end in case you want to check out the different ways I create galaxy backgrounds. For added interest to the background, I heat embossed with blue pearl embossing powder using the Starry Night stencil. For the elements on this card, the stars, the blue whale, and the moon, I used the supply found in a hardware store. Aluminum foil tape. I stumbled upon this while shopping for light bulbs. I found that this tape was perfect to use with smaller dies, and because it is mainly used for plumbing, the stick is quite strong. I forgot to mention, I used vellum for the middle layer of my card. Speaking of dies, these fun little die cuts are from the Hero Arts Dream Accessories Fancy Die Set. The sentiment, Dream Big, is from the Dream Messages stamp set. I really enjoy making these scene cards, and I hope that you will enjoy making them too. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I truly appreciate it. Till next time, bye!